How do? I wanted to say a few words about beer styles because I'm a bit confused by it all. I mean, there are official categories, there are guidelines, there are distinct styles and characteristics for those styles. All well and good, but it must be a really difficult job now because the categories are all over the show. There's things that clearly pale ales are purporting to be gold ales, and vice versa. And there's things that are clearly bitters, but from a marketing strategy point of view, don't really want to claim that they are. So they're an old ale or something, or oh, I don't know, they find a way around it. And so things aren't how they used to be. And in my day it was simple. There were only a few beer styles. And they were very well defined. You had pale ales. Simple enough. It was pale. The malt that went in it was very lightly roasted, and therefore it had very little colour and flavour. So the darker the beer, the more roasted the malts. There are only certain types of roasted malts, and they only produced certain beer types. And even then, some of the beer styles were the ways that you brewed with those reasonably limited malts. And so the beer styles were things like pale, and then you'd be into your milds and bitters, and really that was much the same thing, except that the bitters were more bitter, chiefly because they had more hops in them. The milds were people who weren't very keen on the hoppy thing. Point being that beer styles were quite simple in my day. Pale ales, milds, bitters, and there were a range of bitters, from weak to strong, session bitters up to extra special bitters, ESBs. And then you were onto things like browns, brown ale, which usually again were quite mild. And then porters and stouts. I don't remember it being much more complicated than that. I don't think I'm missing much out. And then along came lager. And even though it was keg and not real ale, I think some of the beer was keg and not real ale. By then, there was some pretty awful stuff in London. Some of the muck that Watleys were turning out. Lager was a breath of fresh air. It was cold, it was fizzy. Milds have gone out the window. Bitter's gone out the window because I don't think it's marketable. The next generation won't like something bitter. When they won't like something that's advertised as being bitter. So yeah, it's some sort of ale or old ale now. So it was simple back then. Beer categories now, I mean, they're making them up all the time. I reviewed a beer the other day that had called itself an India Pale Lager, which I'd not really heard of before. Apparently it is a thing in America, I think on the West Coast. But isn't that a daft term? India Pale Lager. India Pale Ale, like that. It's a pale ale, so it's not a brown ale. It's been distinguished from brown ales, darker ales, by having the epithet pale. So it's a pale ale that was sent to India. They made it stronger and hoppier in order that it might be better preserved and survive the journey and the hot temperatures when it got there. And so that's a bona fide beer style, for sure. It's quite an old beer style. But India Pale Lager, well, that's just a nonsense, because there isn't a dark lager, is there? There isn't a brown lager. Well, it probably is. But I mean, it's not a category. And so to distinct lagers are pale, to try and distinguish it in that way is unnecessary. These things have never been anywhere near India, so that's nonsense. The Indians have already got lager. They don't need your product. They're not going to buy it. It's nothing to do with India. It's just a marketing ploy. It's lager with the wrong hops in it. And not only that, they don't even go in it. I think they just dry hop it or something. So say, each to their own, but a little more clarification, I think, now. I think some things shouldn't even be a category at all. So, what's the difference between this India Pale Lager thing and, say, a golden ale? You could have a golden ale at 5%. You could have a golden ale that used lager malt as its base malt. You could have a golden ale that used New World hops and maybe only dry hop with them. I can't see why you wouldn't call an India Pale Lager just a golden ale. I think it's just a marketing strategy. I mean, I think it was an American thing and it was a West Coast thing and it was supposed to be not bitter, wasn't it? But if it's not bitter, then it's not an IPA. It's a nonsense. It's a nonsense. Don't be fooled. And golden ale, oh, what is it? Really, it's a pale ale, but with New World hops and not English hops. Otherwise, it's a pale ale. It's a very loose category. And then if you've got a mix of English hops and American hops, which is, I think this is, well, that's really confusing. Yeah. And then there's no distinction, absolutely no distinction, between what was a wheat beer and what was a barley beer. Absolutely none anymore. No, it's all just beer. And I mean, that's where I've got my biggest problem. I mean, just because somebody's called a pale ale gold or a golden ale pale, you know, that's no crime. I'll soon find out. And I like them both anyway. But it's the wheat beer thing. It's not telling you that it's a wheat beer. Just calling it beer. Oh, a fruity, zesty, tropical fruit, this, something, that experience. And it's in a can, so you can't even see that it's cloudy. Even in a brown bottle, you can sort of see how cloudy it might be. But in a tin, you've got no idea. And if it's not going to tell you, you know, most beer has a bit of wheat in it to improve the body. This beer has wheat in it. I can tell you that. I can tell you from the way the head behaves. Look how lacy, look how frothy, creamy that head is. You don't get that without a bit of wheat in there, because wheat's really glutinous, and that's a desirable quality when you're talking about mouthfeel. It's maybe not such a desirable quality when you're talking about having a nice, clear, crisp product, because it tends to make beer cloudy. So I think a distinction would really help. You say that this is predominantly a wheat beer, or this is predominantly a barley beer. I think that would really help me, for sure, because I'm not that keen on wheat beer. And if I knew, I probably wouldn't have bought it. Some of them are terrific. Some of the flavour, some of the hopping. Some of them, I have to admit, I've been pleasantly surprised. You know, if I closed my eyes, I probably wouldn't know. Oh yeah, lovely. Except that you can't taste any malt. Even if it's malted wheat, it doesn't taste like malted barley. It lacks taste. It just has a twang. And it's not my favourite thing. So that would really help me. If there was a distinction between what is a wheat beer and what is a barley-based beer. Some sort of clear category distinction. I think the time has come. And then, you know, some of these subcategories. You know, IPA. What do you qualify as an IPA anymore? You can call almost anything an IPA these days. You know, there's a traditional IPA, and then there's maybe a New World IPA, but then there's RIPA, NEPA, EPA. So again, some category would help. If you said, well, it can't really be an IPA if it's a wheat beer, that would help. Or but it wasn't really an IPA if it didn't have enough hops in it. It needs to be hoppy. And yeah, it needs to be strong. It could be a session IPA, which is a nonsense. IPA couldn't be weak. The extra strength and the extra hops are what help preserve it. And so it's a fundamental characteristic of the beer style. If you can just call anything IPA, and this IPL thing, that I'm still chuckling about that. India Pale Lager. It's silly, isn't it? That is, surely that's silly. Oh, it sounds silly to me. But I stand corrected. I mean, if it is a category, it is. It's part of the joy of doing these reviews is the education. I'm learning so much. And if it's necessary to expose my ignorance, well, so be it. I'm prepared to sacrifice my dignity, my intellectual dignity, for the sake of knowledge. And although that might look, or I might look, pretty stupid at times, I think that's noble enough. It's as noble as I get. In the world of new craft brewing and then novelty and everything, oh, anything goes really. I mean, if it's beer and people are going to drink it, who am I to say? So really my reviews are about what I like, and maybe over time we'll see that change. I'm being forced to be more broad-minded. I'm drinking beers that I wouldn't ordinarily, because I'm not trying them because they're different, maybe because they're part of the supermarket range. But I am being pushed beyond my comfort zone. But I happen to think that's a good thing. It's not going to kill me, is it? I was brought up on traditional beer. I like barley-based beer. I'm not a big fan of wheat beer because I think it needs flavouring. And whether that's hops or coconut or mango or anything else you want to throw in there, you go right ahead. That's absolutely fine. I think we could do with discerning between what is essentially a wheat beer and a barley beer. I think if we made a distinction between wheat-based beer and barley-based beer, and perhaps we need a better definition between the pale ales and the golden ales, and we certainly need some sort of distinction between whether those fruit flavours are because of the clever use of hops, or whether it's just some coconut or orange additive. If you like that, I've nothing against that. Great gateway into beer. Fantastic. Why not? You go ahead. But I'd like to know. I'd like to know that that's what it is I'm buying. That would help. And then it would help everybody, because I wouldn't be buying beer that I didn't want. I could be focusing on the beer that I did. And likewise, somebody wouldn't get a nasty shock if they were told something was a pale ale and they were expecting it to be cloudy and full of orange juice, and it turned out actually to be malty and only have hops in it. So I think we need a better clarification, a clearer system. Yeah, you can't go by the category anymore, or by what's on the packet. You have to open it and try it, and acclaim or reject it. I'm acclaiming this one.